This is Jesse with Granbury Volunteer Fire Department. This video is an introduction to the L3 Harris system that will be used for communications for fire EMS and law enforcement in Hood County that will be implemented sometime in the near future. This system will improve communications through technology versus the old string and Dixie cup method that we used in years past. Now we'll have modern computerized communication that should improve everyone's operations. Should help in several ways. Need to realize that this is not just the old-fashioned pick it up, push the button, talk. And if the transmission comes through at all, it's just broken or staticky. Now, if you don't have a good solid connection, you won't get a good solid transmission. So the benefits are going to be the increased number of channels, the ability to patch channels together for multiple different agencies or incidents, and the fact that it's digital. So like your cell phone, it sends all the information in a little packet at the speed of light. That's the same thing here. So all the communications take up a small amount of bandwidth in a large system with lots of bandwidth. So you're able to pile in several different transmissions and communications in one frequency and digitize them and separate them out on the other end of the receiving end. It's way over my head how this stuff works. I'm hoping that I can dumb it down to the level I can understand it and everybody else can too. So like any other radios, you know, your mobile truck mounted radio is going to be much more powerful than your handheld radio. So if you're having trouble hitting the tower or something like that with your handheld, go try the truck. If you're going simplex, which is mobile to mobile or radio to radio, and you're not going through a repeater, you can set up a relay where the person in the truck is relaying information as needed, but the people on scene may be talking radio to radio or in a simplex channel. So what is a trunking system? I've asked myself this many times, and I still don't completely understand it. But the way I understand it is that you have a basic frequency, and the frequency is the pull. And then you have all these digitized communications that are all happening on the same frequency. It's very similar to the way your cell phone works, where there's one frequency, but there's thousands of cell phones talking on this one frequency. And essence, your radio is now a cell phone, and it works in a very similar fashion, which allows overlapping communications that are separated at the receiving end to determine which one goes where by what channel you're set on. There's a lot of people involved in a system like this and a lot of agencies, so that stuff carries a lot of ability for a lot of talking at the same time. With that, your radio is a computer, just like your cell phone's a computer. You know, we carry around this computer in our pocket that has more computing ability than what flew the rocket to the moon, and it's literally not much larger than a business card. So the signal is sent, it's encoded at the radio that's transmitting, and then it gets decoded at the receiving radio and turned back into an audio transmission. With that, if your modulation of your voice or things like that are excessive, it can cause problems with the back end receiving of that signal and make it sound worse than what it is. A lot of times, if it gets real choppy, and makes sounds that sound similar to a dial-up modem, that's a problem with the digitization of the signal. You'll hear these things from time to time, and best thing to do is just slow down. Try to get your conversation out as best you can, calmly and steadily. A lot of moving parts to the system, and we call them moving parts, but they're not really going anywhere. So the signal is going to leave whatever radio is keying up to do the initial talking. Then it's going to microwave around to different towers and be retransmitted back on another part of the channel to the receiving radio. And all this is happening in microseconds, or at the speed of light. So the 700 system allows lots of communication. You've got all the people that wish they were firefighters, the firefighters, and the people that keep the firefighters from spending all the money, all communicating on the same system. Audio quality can be affected by many factors, including the position of the microphone from your mouth, the background noise, the truck engine running, and looping feedback where you've got multiple radios in the cab of the truck all squawking at each other, or weak signal. There is no squelch, so you can't click the mic and let go. It has to click and it has to lock into the frequency, and then you can talk. So there's always a delay from that time that you key the mic to when you speak. The dispatch center has lots of capabilities, so they alert agencies to emergencies. They can listen to certain talk groups. They can have private conversations that are encrypted and encoded. They page different departments in EMS. They can connect telephone calls to the radio, and they can patch talk groups together. So they can take two different frequencies in some cases and tie them together so that two different incidents can be working together on one patched together frequency where like a geographic boundary or something was in the way. If you are going to talk to dispatch or any other units via the radio system, use common English. 10 codes and all that stuff and regional diction are not necessarily the best ways to communicate. Plain, clear, concise English always works best. How are you going to get your calls? We're going to talk a little bit about how you're going to get your calls. All calls are going to end up being paged on the 700 Fire Dispatch channel. That channel will only be used for paging calls. That will not be the channel that you go en route on. EMS calls will be paged on a separate EMS channel. So if the call involves both agencies, then both channels will be paged. If it only involves one agency, only one agency will be paged on that frequency. So what you're going to see that's going to be different, you're not going to hear all the EMS calls for the whole county unless you're monitoring the EMS channel. You're not going to hear all the fire calls for the whole county unless you're monitoring the fire channel. These calls and the paging ability will cut down on some of the nuisance background noise that you're hearing on stuff that doesn't involve you. If you're nosy and you're just going to keep listening, once you figure out scan groups, you can scan both those channels and listen to the calls being paged, and then realize that the en route is happening on a separate frequency from what the call is being paged on. So you'll also have to listen to that channel to be able to know what's going on or hear. It's a little different than what we currently do, but it has purpose. That paging channel is never covered up with people talking. It's only used to page calls. Unit responses and scene operation assignments. We're going to talk about what channels you're going to respond on and what channels you're going to have your fireground operations on. It's a little bit different from how we've previously done it, but this system is designed to limit the amount of traffic on any particular channel at any particular time so that multiple incidents can be happening and not everybody is talking over everybody else. As a general guideline, these are the 5 TAC channels that are currently created, and these are how calls will be positioned on these TAC channels. The channels are laid out the same way the precinct map is laid out in the county, with the exception of adding the 5th one for Granbury response area. The next slide has the map that shows how this works out. So if you're going to a call that's in Station 20's area and you're mutual aid, you're going to go en route on TAC 4. If you're going to a call as mutual aid that's in Station 60's area, you're going to go en route on TAC Channel 1. This is something that you're going to have to pay attention to because you're going to be on the wrong channel if you're not paying attention to what channel is assigned to the call. This piece is very, very important. This map shows the areas and the TAC channels as the plan stands now. I'm not telling you that this may not alter or change at some point, but as the system is designed to work, this is the plan. If you look where your station is and what areas you're responding to, quite often you may be using 2 or 3 different channels that you're not currently used to using. So be very conscious of what channel is assigned for what call. On-scene operations. So once you get on scene, the scene can be broken into a fireground channel to where you could have multiple scenes working in the same tactical channel, where the incident commander may be monitoring 2 different channels, but the on-scene stuff, what we currently call a TAC channel, would now be a fireground channel. So that's going to be, the par checks, the, interior to command, those kind of things are going to happen on that fireground 1 through 9. Gives you the ability to have many more open channels or incident-specific channels to where most of the radio traffic that's not essential for the dispatch to be dealing with is kept out of their ear, so they're dealing with the information and the communications that are pertinent to them. It's just one way to break things down into a layered management system to eliminate some level of chaos, to where you're not hearing a mayday at one scene that's not a part of 3 other scenes that are happening at the same time. It's only at that one that's involved in. Or you're hearing an alarm of collapse or some other thing that's important for that one specific scene. And just as it's always been done, the command can request a certain TAC channel or fireground channel for a certain incident, or dispatch can put in or ask an incident to be moved to a command channel or a different channel in order to free up the existing channel that the incident may be happening on for other incidents, and to scale back the amount of radio traffic that they're having to deal with at any given time. It's the same system we currently use. It's just called something different, and it's a little bit different. There's a little bit of extra layering there to isolate the things dispatch needs to deal with from the things they don't need to deal with. And again, what we previously talked about. It just helps keep things better organized. Once this becomes habit and this becomes the norm, this system will work pretty well for our needs here in Hood County, and should create an environment where it's easier to not have crossing of incidents on a particular channel, to where there's less confusion about what is happening. This slide represents kind of the knobs and buttons that are on the Harris radios. It's taken right out of the manual for the Harris radios. If you are truly intrigued, that information's out there on the internet. Just, plug in your model number and get that manual out and read it. But I thought this was important because it kind of just labels what all the buttons are and what they're used for. There'll be a follow-up video to this that shows actually how to navigate the menus and how to get through the radio to get to the channels you want to get to. This is just good reference for what those buttons look like and where they are on the radio. And again, I want to thank you for your time to watch this. I know it's a short synopsis of kind of how things work, and it's broken down into layman's terms. For some of you, this is common knowledge, and for some of you, it's voodoo black magic. I fall in that one that truly doesn't completely understand it all, but I understand the concept of how it's supposed to work, and I think that's the important piece to take away with this, is how it's supposed to work. Look for the other videos that explain each individual style of radio in depth and how to navigate the menus. Those will be done and in the playlist with the radio use videos. Thank you for watching.